Great and awesome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our last Parenting in a Pandemic webinar of the school year. Pretty exciting. The theme of tonight is summer send-off, and we'll kind of touch on what we're going to go over here in a minute, but this webinar series is put on between Santa Barbara Unified School District and Family Service Agency of Santa Barbara County. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Whether this is your first webinar with us or whether you've attended one of the other webinars throughout this school year, we are so glad you're here. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Wednesday evening. So, who are we? Good question. So the three of us, we are members of the Family Service Agency school-based counseling team. We have school-based counselors actually all across the county. We're a part of the South County team, and we have school-based counselors at the different secondary schools, so the middle schools and high schools throughout Santa Barbara Unified School District. And we also have counselors in some of the surrounding districts and some of the elementary schools and middle and high schools. So we are just a few of the awesome team members that we have. But I'll get us started. My name is Devin Haley Nelson, and I am a master's in social work candidate, and I am placed at La Cumbre Junior High School.
Hi everybody, my name is Michael, joining Devin and Liz. I am a school-based therapist at La Cumbre Junior High and Santa Barbara Junior High.
And I'm Liz. I'm a student in a PhD program of clinical psychology, and I'm currently a school-based therapist at La Colina Junior High School and Santa Barbara High School.
Yes, and we will be your presenters for this evening. So we wanted to go over a little bit of housekeeping before we really get rolling in the content for the evening. First and foremost, as you may have seen, this meeting is being recorded. So please feel free to have your video on or off, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Of course, we would love to see your faces and get that bit of feedback, but do what you feel most comfortable with, please. And we will let you know that as long as our technological intentions are all correct, we are intending for all attendees to be permanently muted throughout the presentation, just to try to avoid any distractions or interruptions. Please don't take offense to it. I'm sure you have wonderful things to say, but instead of verbally communicating, please do send us comments in the chat box. So feel free to use the chat feature down below and send us your questions or comments or anything. Feel free to use like the Zoom reactions, thumbs up or applause or anything if you like what we're saying. And with any questions or comments, thank you. I see Liz is applauding. So depending on your question or comment, we may address it right then in live time if it makes sense on the slide that we're on, or we might wait until the end. We will have a question and answer time at the end. So just wanted to throw that out there. And we will definitely maintain confidentiality. So if one of you sends a question, we will not say who asked the question. Just want to put that out there as well. And you can choose to ask your questions to either myself or Michael or Liz. And yeah, we did want to note as well that this webinar is for informational and educational purposes only. So your participation in this webinar is not intended to be a substitute for professional, psychological, psychiatric, or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And also we have some of our awesome colleagues are presenting this webinar in Spanish right now as well. So up here in the top right is the Zoom ID and password, and I believe that Liz put that in the chat as well. So feel free to access that if you prefer, or share that with someone else. So why are we here this evening? So as I mentioned, we've had a lot of these webinars throughout the school year. I believe I counted, I think this is our 6th Parenting in the Pandemic webinar throughout the school year. And we've touched a variety of topics, including self-care, anxiety, signs of suicide, building resiliency amid adversity. I think that might have been. I think I hit them all. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time reviewing some of the key points of the information that we've touched on, and that will include anxiety, depression, and COVID-related challenges. But then with that, because we think those are really important things and really relevant still, but we also wanted to discuss the importance of self-care, gratitude, self-compassion in order to support mental wellness throughout the summer, because we're less than a month away from summer break, people. Can you believe it? And we also wanted to share some summer resources and opportunities and programs that are happening throughout the summer as well, so you have that information. So let's get started.
Thank you, Devin. All right, so we're going to start with COVID. Many of us are facing challenges that can be really stressful and overwhelming and cause strong emotions. Public health actions such as social distancing, although necessary, can make us feel isolated and lonely and can increase stress and anxiety. So learning to cope with stress in a healthy way will make you, the people you care about, and those around you more resilient. Some folks are asking why the coronavirus is triggering mental health issues. In this state of survival, coronavirus can trigger the following: feelings of fear, anger, sadness, worry, numbness, frustration, and despair. We have increased health anxiety, and we're also worrying about loved ones' health and wellness. On top of that, many people have lost their jobs or experiencing financial insecurity. In the chat box, my colleague Michael will be sharing 3 articles that speak to some of the phenomena I think a lot of folks are experiencing through the pandemic, including myself and also the students that I work with. A term called languish, which I won't go into too much detail, but in the New York Times article, languishing is described as a sense of stagnation and emptiness. It feels as if you're kind of muddling through your days, or you're kind of living life with a foggy windshield in front of you. Languish is said to be the dominant emotion of 2021. You don't have to have symptoms of mental illness, but you also don't have the picture of mental health. So you're kind of somewhere in between. And as we also slowly enter the world, some people are more nervous. They're actually panicked. Everyone is worried or anxious to some degree about what lies ahead and if they might get sick. But sometimes that anxiety can get really big. For some, their anxiety is so great that they don't want to socialize or even be in public. What they're experiencing is re-entry panic syndrome. On a similar note, cave syndrome is the experience of feeling scared or unwilling to re-enter post-pandemic society, even after being vaccinated, because one has grown too accustomed to isolation. I have many students that come to mind who are experiencing how difficult it is just to be around people. One kiddo in particular would describe herself as outgoing, extroverted, and the life of the party. When the pandemic forced her into isolation, she began to withdraw emotionally into her comfort, her cave, or her cocoon. She stopped speaking to friends and stopped engaging in activities she once enjoyed. Finding solace at home provided her with a feeling of safety. When she returned to school in person, she experienced feelings of anxiety just walking across the campus. The student stated that she felt overwhelmed by the amount of people on campus, and even though she used to thrive in this exact environment, she no longer felt like herself. These increased feelings of anxiety and depression following COVID are not uncommon. In the next slide, we'll look at the ways depression and anxiety are experienced and exacerbated by COVID-19. As you can see here, we have listed some common symptoms, both for depression and anxiety. As I go through the list of different symptoms, I encourage you to do some self-reflection. Maybe which of these symptoms stand out to you? Have you experienced any of these? Have any of these gotten worse during the pandemic, or maybe even better? And have you noticed these symptoms in your student or even a loved one? On the left, we have anxiety, which can be experienced through restlessness, difficulty concentrating, irritability, racing thoughts, catastrophic thinking, obsessing, and thinking the world is not safe. On the other side, we have depression, which includes low energy, tired, sad, and tearful, difficulty concentrating, irritability, unmotivated, changes in eating and sleeping, feelings of worthlessness, low self-esteem, and thinking the world is not safe. You may have noticed that there's a lot of overlap of symptoms on both sides. Like we mentioned, all of us are experiencing symptoms to some extent. And we all come across stressful times in our life when these anxiety and depression symptoms may be impacting our daily functioning to the point that we really need to take some action. So now we'll look at a video which goes into deeper detail about why we are experiencing anxiety.
know what anxiety feels like. We all do. Everyone experiences anxiety in some way or another. It's something that connects all of us together. Why we feel anxiety and what it really is, that may surprise you. Without anxiety, we'd all be in serious trouble. As soon as your brain senses you're in danger, a little piece of it, called the amygdala, kicks in. It gets your body ready to react. That could mean fight, run away, or shut down. It's called the fight, flight, or freeze response. This reaction goes back millions of years to our distant animal ancestors. Animals whose amygdalae were more sensitive to danger were more likely to stay alive and off the menu. Over millions of generations, this developed into the system we all know as anxiety. So you see, anxiety itself is not all bad. But when there's no immediate life or death threat, and your amygdala keeps telling your body that you're in danger, that's when anxiety becomes a problem. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between getting eaten and public speaking or failing a test. Human society has only existed for a relatively short time. It's messy and complicated and confusing, and our amygdalae just haven't had time to catch up. So sometimes, when we're in uncomfortable situations, our brains misread the risk and overreact. Our hearts beat faster and we breathe heavily, pulling more oxygen into our bodies. The muscles in our arms and legs tense up and fill with blood. Our skin perspires to cool us down. This would all be great if we needed to fight or run, but instead, we just feel tense and sweaty. Sometimes our minds go blank and we feel like we can't move or talk. That would be great if we needed to hide. Instead, we just feel stuck. When things trigger our anxiety, sometimes we try to avoid them, like our ancestors avoiding a predator. But that can cause problems when those triggers are important parts of life, like going to school or meeting new people, things that won't just give up and go away. So how does knowing all this help? Well, it starts with remembering what's really going on. There's nothing physically wrong with you. It's just your amygdala trying to tell you it thinks you're in danger, even if it gets confused about how much danger you're really in. Understanding why we feel anxiety is an important step in learning to manage it. You know what anxiety feels like.
Great. So I think that video perfectly shows the ways that kiddos are even experiencing anxiety. Going back to school, having those feelings of their heart racing or sweating can be really overwhelming. So now we can look at it how specifically it presents in teens. It'll recap some of the areas that talked about in the video, but here are some of the ways that you might notice anxiety in your teen. First is emotional changes, feeling on edge, irritable, difficulty concentrating, and maybe unexplained outbursts. Some social changes, avoiding interactions with usual friends, isolating from peer group, and spending increased time alone. Physical changes, frequent headaches, migraines, stomach pains, and unexplained aches and pains. Sleep disturbances, having a difficult time falling asleep or staying asleep. And finally, poor school performance, low grades, frequent missed assignments, feeling overwhelmed by work, procrastination, and concentrating. I think grades in particular have been a really common way that we can see how the pandemic is affecting students. Many parents are concerned about their children's grades dropping and unsure of why this is happening. Go to the next slide. Great. And again, anxiety and depression have a lot of overlap. You'll see some similarities in this slide, but they are also really different and they each affect teens differently too. Any of these signs can occur in children who are not depressed, but when seen together nearly every day, there are red flags for depression. Some key indicators that are seen more with symptoms of depression are not enjoying things that they used to, change in weight, eating, either up or down, sleeping too little at night or too much during the day, no longer wanting to be with friends or family, lack of energy, not caring about what happens in the future, aches and pains, frequent thoughts of death or suicide. If any of these experiences feel relatable to either yourself or your student, the rest of our webinar will be an interactive opportunity to learn supportive tools to bring hopefulness and compassion to yourself or your student.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liz. So yeah, we're going to change gears a little bit. And we're looking at both anxiety and how depression are especially heavy topics, and we get that. And we can only imagine just how you feel, and likely at wit's end if you're working with your child, and after trying everything you can think of, you still haven't been able to see any change, and you're really concerned. We get that. But we're here to remind you that there's hope, and it's essential that you sit with your child, just as this image kind of illustrates, to help encourage them to stay hopeful. And it really helps to get on your child's level. And I really appreciate how this image really shows that, where we can meet them where they are and feel out the whole process with them and let them know they're not alone. It all starts with an ongoing conversation, and this doesn't happen immediately, nor should it be happening overnight. What is often most powerful for helping your child is demonstrating and offering that you're there with them by either modeling calmness for them, listening to them actively. And a part of what that looks like is validating, empathizing, and reflecting what they're experiencing inside. And instead of immediately just jumping on them and trying to figure out what to do next, or telling them they have to figure it out and find a solution immediately. It's very important to normalize what they're feeling. They're not the only ones, especially during COVID, who are experiencing some of these things as we've been talking about. And rather than reinforcing what they already think of themselves already, which is likely that something's wrong with them or that they must be broken and need some fixing, we want to encourage you to help sit with them and lean into that anxiety and help practice some relaxation strategies together. So next up, we're looking at some tips we have to share, which can really be applied to where all of us are at. And we encourage you to think about how these strategies can help alleviate symptoms of our own anxiety and depression too. These include making a routine. You can focus on some basics like what you eat, how well you sleep, exercise in terms of being physically active, and even spending time with friends, loved ones, and really getting in that quality time together for positive connections. I think this applies especially during COVID, for at least I think our jobs, spending a lot less time on our devices since we're on them way more than I think we are used to, or at least taking intentional breaks. That includes all of us who really, and it used to be, I think, so different when this used to be our getaway from maybe the regular day, and it's very different now. So we're going to help focus also on what our students are doing well themselves already. And it might sound silly, but especially during COVID, again, some of the smallest tasks require infinitely more energy. At least that's the case for me than before, which can include maybe even getting out of bed and really highlighting that, where it's like, hey, Jimmy, things are different. It's tougher now. And I just wanted to let you know, not having to get you this morning and getting out of bed and you getting ready on your own was a big deal. And thank you for that. I know it's tough. So we're really trying to provide that safe space for our children. And that's a part of praise too. And the more understanding and less stressful an environment that helps prevent our kids from being immediately overwhelmed is key. We don't want our children to expect immediate backlash, whether that be harsh criticism, judgment, disappointment, and we want to make it so they don't further shut down if that's where they're at, when they may open up and ask for your support. And we're going to add one article in here that's specifically about emotional problems is how it's categorized for childhood depression, and some help and tips for you folks as parents to be able to work with your child. So if you can add that, that'd be great. And moving on, we're looking at this big list of coping skills. So by reinforcing that safe space for your child to learn and grow in, there's more opportunity for them to open up, process the experience, and move forward. So talk with them about your own process for learning how to work through stressful times, whether that is through some examples on this slide, like breathing techniques you use. I think we mentioned some different exercise or body movements, even different hobbies. And I think some on the list could be like music, drawing, sports, even playing with a pet. I really like that one. Or really any combination of mindfulness practices and coping skills that have worked for you. We really highly encourage you just to be open, kind of as we're doing now, where COVID or not, it's always pretty stressful. And being more open and honest about what's happening for us makes it so we feel like we're not alone. And it's really tough to get out of our bubble thinking that this is only affecting us. So especially this is the case if all the information we're talking about is new and scary, and it seems like it would be really difficult for you to bring it up with your child nonetheless. And in doing so, you can be your child's teammate and role model that really allows you to explore together and find what skills and tools will best fit what they need, whether they look like anything on this list or not. And there's much more than what's listed here.
So we know that we're kind of using this as a bit of a transition. So this is a lot of information that we're talking about, right? Like mental health, anxiety, depression, how to support your child or teen or other loved ones in their mental health journeys, all during a pandemic. Like, that's a lot. And I know, I just recognize that we are presenting a lot of information, and want to encourage you that you can take what's helpful and leave what's not. And we just encourage you to take a couple deep breaths. If you need to stretch it out or take a sip of water or tea or whatever beverage you got, we invite you to do so. Take care of yourself throughout this presentation. Just wanted to invite you to relax, be the frog here. And the next part of this presentation focuses on tools, skills, and strategies that we can use to really make sure that we're caring for ourselves. So we're talking about, hey, how to parent during a pandemic, how to really support your teens and kids. And when we're running on empty, when we're stressed out of our brains, like, we know that it's really hard to care for the other people in our home. So this second portion, we really encourage you to kind of think about yourself and how you can implement these things in your own life, and also model for your teens and children and loved ones how to implement these practices themselves as well. All right, so what is self-care? So the term self-care refers to activities and practices that we can engage in on a regular basis to reduce stress and maintain and enhance our short and long-term health and well-being. Self-care is also necessary for us to be effective and successful in honoring our professional and personal commitments. So I think that self-care has gotten a lot of attention throughout this last year, right? As mental health has kind of become more of a hot topic during the pandemic, which I think is great. But I think that sometimes self-care maybe has gotten twisted, or the true meaning of what it is has been lost. Like, yes, binging Netflix or online shopping, all those things can be good in moderation. However, I wonder if we engage in those things too much, is it really truly caring for ourselves? I think that self-care encapsulates the things that you really do to give yourself life and fill your tank up. Looking at this tank up here in the right, things that really fuel you. And because that's what we need. We need to have that fuel in order to really be able to care for the kids and other loved ones in our lives. So there are 5 different areas of self-care that we want to touch on. So there's social, physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And I want to highlight that we're all holistic beings, right? So basically, like, what I mean by that is, if we aren't well, or how we're doing in one of these 5 areas impacts the rest. So in order to truly care for ourselves, we can't neglect 1 or 2 of these areas and like really hit a home run in the others. We need to be mindful of how we're doing in all 5 of these areas. Like, for me, maybe I am living my best social life. I'm really like engaging in my spiritual practices, but I'm neglecting sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep, or I'm like eating fast food, picking up Chick-fil-A every day after work. Like that will for sure impact the other areas of my life. I'm sure I won't be able to show up and be fully present and engaged with my loved ones, or in my professional life as well. And that would definitely affect the other areas. So we want to highlight some questions or or things to consider to kind of evaluate, hey, how am I doing in these different areas of self-care? So first, related to social self-care, some questions to consider might be, are you getting enough time with friends? What are you doing to nurture your relationships with friends and family? And as I go through these, I invite you to kind of think about your own life, reflect on your own life. Physical self-care, how much sleep are you getting? How much physical activity are you getting? I think that's especially important throughout the pandemic, right? How are you taking care of your health? Are you eating well, balanced, nutritious diet? Mental health, are you making enough time for activities that mentally stimulate you? Are you doing productive things to help you stay mentally healthy? Regarding spiritual self-care, what questions do you ask yourself about life and experience? Are you engaging in spiritual practices that you find fulfilling? Are you involved with a certain spiritual community or church? Emotional self-care. Do you have healthy ways to process your emotions? Do you incorporate activities into your life that help you feel recharged? This is just not an exhaustive list. There's so many more things to consider, but this can get the thoughts going.
Thanks, Devin. I know my favorite self-care tools are talking to my friends and family, and also taking care of my mind and body by hiking or practicing yoga and mindfulness. And I think it's really helpful to break it down into those 5 different categories. So here you can see we have a lovely self-care assessment to follow up with the last one that I'd like to invite you to complete. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil or a writing utensil, or even if you want to take a picture on your phone to look at later, we're going to go through these together now. So there are 10 questions. You can answer 0, never, 1, once in a while, 2, sometimes, and 3, often. So 1, I am able to incorporate humor or laughter in my daily life. 0, never, 1, once in a while, 2, sometimes, or 3, often. 2, I get 7 or more hours of sleep a night. 3, I incorporate play or enjoyable activities into my daily life. 4, I exercise or move my body for at least 30 minutes a day. 5, I take breaks periodically throughout my day. 6, I engage in a spiritual or other practice that feeds my soul. 7, I eat foods that nourish my body. 8, I keep myself hydrated throughout the day. This is a hard one for me to do. 9, I spend time connecting with people that I love. And finally, 10, I express my gratitude with my inner thoughts, words, and actions. I like that one. So now what you can do is you can add up your numbers. And the idea is that the closer to 30 you are, the better you are at self-care. So now that you've been hearing this term a lot lately, like we talked about earlier, you can see that there is a reason for its popularity. If you take care of yourself, you're going to have more energy to take care of others around you. Great. So now we have self-compassion, which includes mindfulness, self-kindness, and connectedness. Self-compassion entails being warm and understanding towards ourselves when we suffer, or if we feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or punishing ourselves with self-criticism. Self-compassionate people recognize that being imperfect, failing, and experiencing life difficulties is inevitable. So they tend to be gentle with themselves when confronted with painful experiences, rather than getting angry when life falls short of set ideals. People cannot always get exactly what they want. When this reality is denied or fought against, suffering increases in the form of stress, frustration, or self-criticism. However, when this reality is accepted with sympathy and kindness, greater emotional equanimity is experienced. Okay, so just because some students are going back to school in person and things are opening up, COVID rates are down, does not mean that we're in the exact same position that we were in last year. Have compassion for yourself and your children, and honor that our mental health is different, because we're also different. We can practice being self-compassionate by being mindful of our emotions and stressors, kind to ourselves, especially when we might not be feeling like ourselves, remembering that we all go through struggles, Therefore, don't go through them alone. You can reach out to somebody. When things get tough, it can be really easy to get stuck in these negative thought patterns. And that's okay, because you're not alone. I do this too. One of the tools that helps not just students, but myself, are daily affirmations. So cultivating those positive relationship with yourself is imperative to your mental health. Now I'm going to read a power thought found in a book called Power Thoughts for Teens and Young Adults, which speaks to self-compassion and can be a daily reminder of practice, giving ourselves permission to practice self-compassion. If you want now to, you can relax, maybe even close your eyes and listen to this quote. It says, "I will not stress myself out or give in to worrying. There is a peaceful center of calmness inside me. I will go there today whenever I need a break. I am not here to prove myself to anyone or meet the expectations of anyone else. I give myself permission to be me and to let myself grow at my own pace in my own way. I let go of thinking I know what others are thinking. I stay in my own mental yard, thinking thoughts of self-love and peaceful self-acceptance. I am doing the best that I can, and that is more than enough. I choose to think soothing thoughts about myself today." Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Liz. I'm personally trying to give myself the permission to kind of be the frog, as we saw earlier, and breathe a little bit. So it kind of goes into this next practice of what we're talking about. And our third focus is on gratitude, which can be broken down into two components, which I'll read off here, where gratitude allows us to recognize good in our lives. So focusing on and appreciating the good constantly reminds us about the great things all around us. And it also allows us to see that the sources of those good are usually close by. So practicing gratitude allows us to recognize those who bring goodness into our lives and humbles us in order to give credit to those who are grateful too. So there's actually science that explains why gratitude is so powerful as a practice too. So in this next slide, we have a video that we're going to take a look at that really examines and kind of speaks to the impact of what they call the attitude of gratitude, which kind of looks at how this might affect us on a cellular level, showing us that gratitude not only helps decrease our anxiety and depression, but also improves our physical health and reinforces our overall resiliency too. So let's get that playing. And just in case, if you want to watch it another time or share it with others, we're going to have that here, and we'll play this for you.
Research shows that adopting an attitude of gratitude, simply expressing appreciation and being more thankful, can measurably improve your overall well-being. For example, studies prove that gratitude can increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency. Grateful people often experience reduced blood pressure, less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives. People who purposefully express more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't, and they're more likely to help others, a pro-social behavior also linked to greater happiness. People who capture grateful thoughts before bed sleep better than those who don't. Why so many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones. Here are a few simple ways to deliberately cultivate that attitude of gratitude. Celebrate minor accomplishments. Think about what you have rather than dwelling on what you don't. Tell the people in your life something you appreciate about them. Tell yourself too. Volunteer, hold a door for a stranger, or simply smile more, and you'll probably feel better, as kindness and giving are connected to gratitude. Similar positive brain changes can occur from regular meditation and mindfulness. Keep a daily gratitude journal using an old-fashioned notebook or a high-tech app. The science is clear. Give gratitude a go. You'll be thankful you did.
I don't know if you folks are too familiar with some of the apps for mindfulness, whether there's Calm or Headspace, but that sounds very familiar maybe to some of you, and I think that's the voice from Headspace. So going on ahead and looking at some of these benefits of practicing gratitude, I found this video to be very clear and easy to understand, and want to emphasize how gratitude's not just an action. It's also a positive emotion that serves a biological purpose. When we're talking about anxiety and depression, those stressors take a huge toll on our body and on our mind. So gratitude is one way to help strengthen our immune system, helping lower our blood pressure, and even helping us sleep too. So gratitude is more than feeling thankful. It is a deeper appreciation for someone or something that produces longer lasting positivity. And before we go on to this next slide, I added one article to the chat that's talking about gratitude and appreciation from the Positive Psychology article. And I know this is easier said than done. So we're going to introduce what it's like for ourselves, because in introducing our children to these concepts and tools, it can be especially difficult if we're not trying it out ourselves. So I would like to invite everyone to reflect and think of an example, whether it's a person, event, decision, and kind of jot down one or two things you're grateful for, perhaps something recently in the last week. We have some examples listed here, such as what is one way you made the most meaningful use of your time today, or what's one good act of generosity or kindness you did or received today. So it doesn't have to be something big, and that's our reminder here. In making this presentation, Devin shared with me some good examples where, oh, you know, this stranger passed by. Maybe it's not the most appropriate right now for COVID with everyone with a mask, but maybe it's behind like a piece of glass and they smiled, and that really made your day. Or driving to work, you didn't hit as many red lights as you're used to. Those are things to be grateful for, and a lot of that doesn't necessarily have to do with anything we're in control of. So we'll take about a minute for now to practice some gratitude, and then we'll start to wrap things up. So we're going to begin right now. Perfect. So feel free to use this on your own time. I wanted to share with the group that we got two suggestions or different examples of gratitude. We have one of our participants who's actually saying that they appreciate the presenters today and that they're thankful for their wisdom and their time. And another is, in quotes, I stopped traffic to let two ducks cross the world and cross the road, and it was the cutest thing ever. So thank you both for
Awesome.
sharing. So Liz or Devin, do you have any kind of pearls of wisdom that you'd like to add to these two wonderful examples?
I'm just grateful, especially I'm grateful for both of those comments, but the duck one, that made me laugh. So thank you for giving me that bright point in my day.
And we're thankful for you folks coming to show up, giving us your time to share, and sharing such a really adorable example of what we can be grateful for too. So really, all these are different sample themes we can explore. So really just take your time, try that out, share it with your children, and we'll share kind of what we're going to wrap up with and get us thinking about summer.
Totally. Yeah, I even wonder what it would look like. Hey, driving to school or at the dinner table. Hey, what's one thing that you're grateful for today? Or what's one thing that made you smile today? You can kind of reframe it. I don't know if teens might be like, what am I grateful for? I could see some of my clients being like, that's weird. But what made you smile? There are different ways to reframe this idea. So summer resources, we have just a couple more slides and then we'll have time for questions. So maybe as we're presenting this, you can start thinking of any questions or comments you might have to share. But summer is so close. Summer is right around the corner, as we are all aware. And I think that this summer, more than ever, it is so important for us all to be intentional about how we spend our summer, but especially for the teens and the kids in our lives. We really got to try to set them up well. I think that structure, routine, the opportunity to safely connect with friends or family members and really encouraging them leaving the house is so important. I think that the timing is really interesting. Like, I know many people have elected to finish off this school year remotely, but I'm thinking about the students who have just gotten used to transitioning back to in-person school and have just gotten used to the groove of waking up in the morning, leaving the house, going to school, seeing, kind of rekindling some of the relationships with their friends. And now it's going to be summer break again, when kind of some of that stuff will fall. Opportunity to connect with some people really can be transformational, you guys. So as we think about the summer, I encourage you all to think about, what can I get my child or teen involved in this summer? Whether it's one of these opportunities that we have listed here, or whether it's just getting connected with some friends or family members in the community. We recognize that safety is still for sure a risk, and there's limitations, but as you are able, we encourage you to think about that. So here are some opportunities: Santa Barbara PAL, Police Activities League, the Santa Barbara Parks and Rec Department, the United Boys and Girls Club, UCSB Department of Recreation. There's this article from NewsHawk that lists off a bunch of different summer programs. Girls Inc. is a popular one. And we just received news today about Santa Barbara Education Foundation summer STEAM and music camps. So if they haven't already, I'm going to ask my colleagues to put those links. Oh, Michael's already on it. Thank you. We put all those links in the chat, so we really encourage you to check it out. And lastly, we wanted to provide some community resources. So as we mentioned, all of us are therapists or counselors at these different schools. And so while we were talking about some of the mental health stuff, if that kind of piqued your interest and you want to learn more, I would encourage you to reach out to your child's academic counselor or have them reach out. You could even ask a teacher, and you could put in a referral. And even putting in that referral doesn't mean like automatically right away you're signing up your kid for therapy, but we do an initial meeting called a screening, where we meet with the kids, talk with them about what's going on, share about what counseling is, and see what might be an appropriate way to support them from there. And there's also therapists from Calm, which is another agency that is based, they have counselors at the elementary schools, and there's a bunch of other community resources as well. So you can call Family Service Agency at this second phone number, and we can connect you with any of our other services or other services in the community. We have some different workshops. We have different programs within our agency, but one of our teams provides workshops and parenting classes, and a free parent coaching line that provides confidential support. So we have the phone number person who runs the English line as well as the Spanish line. And we want to provide these two emergency resources. So Santa Barbara County Access is this point here. I think that's the fifth one down. It's a 24-hour line that can provide support during mental health emergencies, and they can provide referrals to services in the county. So we encourage you to take that down. And Safety, right here, is a phone number. They're available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to serve youth in the county up to age 21. And their specialty is related to safety. So whether that's thoughts about suicide or even violence towards somebody else, they can provide support to help regulate within those situations. And all of our parenting in a pandemic webinars are available on YouTube. So we have that right here. And if they haven't already, I'll ask one of my colleagues to pop that link in the chat as well. But we encourage you to check out some of our past webinars. We go into some of the stuff from the first portion of tonight's webinar. We go into it more in depth in previous webinars. So if you want to learn more specifically about anxiety or some of the other stuff, I invite you to check out those previous webinars. And this webinar will also be uploaded probably within the next week or two. So yeah, now we just wanted to transition to a time of Q&A. So if you have any questions, please do send them our way, and feel free to stay for however long until your needs are met. But if you do want to dip out before then, we just want to thank you again for all of your the time that you spent with us this evening. We really appreciate it and hope that you're taking something from tonight, and happy summer. So any questions?